What's up, y'all? It's Project Photography back with another video, and today we are here at Pelican Cove. Now this is an area that I shot at before. This is like a cliffside type of vibe, not really so much of a beach, but here we can see that is Pelican Cove right there. Nice and exaggerated when it comes to this curvature. And for a lot of my images that I've taken here, I've gone down to the beach and shot a lot of my photos there, but today I kind of want to focus up a little bit of a different angle here. So this right here, I think, is an area that you're able to get to. You can kind of hike up it, and we can get a really nice view of this beautiful beach. And I really want to utilize that today. This is an area that I really want to focus on. I don't really want to travel around and shoot a bunch of different photos. I really want to focus on just taking one perfect photo. And man, look at this view. I mean, this is insane. I mean, there's a cliffside right there, and the sun is right behind us, so I'm very backlit right now. And I'll be using the Viltrox 16mm f1.8 to get more testing in and see what that lens can do. I'm gonna shoot a bunch of different photos throughout the different times, mainly before the sun actually sets, and then when the sun is setting, and then when the sun is actually fully down and we're getting more into blue hour. Because the sun is behind us, the colors are gonna be more on like the pink, purple hue side rather than more of like the orange and reds. Something that we're gonna have a difficult time dealing with is this fog coming in, this huge marine layer that is coming in from, I believe, the north side. I'm geographically challenged, I have no idea, but we have a lot of this marine layer coming in that's gonna pose a little bit of a difficult issue for us to work around. I mean, when it comes to lighting especially, and honestly sharpness, atmospheric conditions can definitely play a huge part in it. And we have another around 38-ish minutes until the sun actually sets to get some decent lighting. And man, if you look at this right now, it is just absolutely insane. That marine layer is really just rolling in, and it's rolling in pretty heavily. So we're gonna have to work around this. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. Probably run a long exposure to kind of smoothen out this marine layer and also the water. And obviously for me, getting this shot nice and wide is really crucial because there's some elements down there, especially like this little rock formation here where these people are fishing, and it's getting a nice exaggerated feel to it. So I think 16mm with the Viltrox is gonna do a great job. I'm more or less worried about the lighting, to be honest with you. That is gonna be the biggest thing that we're gonna have to deal with today. So right now I have it at 16mm with a 6-stop ND filter on, and we're getting about an 8-second exposure. And one thing I also had to change is that I saw with the mechanical shutter, there was a lot of movement in there. I think because it's such a windy day, there's just a lot going on. But yeah, this shoot is not going any way that I expected it to go. I mean, just look at this. This is insane. This is absolute insanity with the fog rolling in. Right now it is about sunset, but honestly it doesn't look too bad when I'm actually looking at these photos. It looks okay. Obviously with this you can kind of tell that it's not as sharp as I want it to be, but colors wise I'm actually okay with it. In composition, I really like this spot in particular. I'm gonna go ahead and take another exposure, and now you might be thinking, okay, that's a lot of photos that I'm taking, but to be honest with you, I really want to take a lot because I just want to see the changes in light. And as you can see here, there's a lot of pink and orange hues back there, and it looks very diffuse in my opinion, mainly because you can't even see the sun. I mean, this is where the sun was at the beginning of the video, and now it is just completely gone. At the end of the day, you cannot control what the weather looks like, but all you can really do is focus on the things that you can control, like composition, and of course trying your best to make the most out of these weather conditions and planning around it to a certain extent. But when you're in a situation like this is just absolutely insane. I'll be very honest with you, that shoot went a whole lot better than I actually thought the photos were gonna come out. I thought that this marine layer was gonna come in and just completely cover this cliffside and make the photos practically unusable. But it actually looks really good in the photos. Like this kind of filled up the right side of the frame and it actually looked really good. I'm actually really excited to go back and take a look at the photos. But there's a couple major takeaways that I had from this. First of all, when I had my tripod way up, like the center column way up, and I was using mechanical shutter at like a 5-second timer, I was actually getting a lot of motion blur in my images. But then I realized that the wind was actually causing a lot of that motion blur. I mean, I was shooting at like 20-second long exposure and actually going to electronic shutter, bringing down that center column to be more flush with the tripod and having a little bit longer of a delay, going from about a 5-second timer to a 10-second timer, made all the difference in the world. And especially with the Z6 III, having that solid electronic shutter made a massive difference. Also, I decided to shoot a couple of photos with a little bit shorter of exposure, around 4 seconds versus that 20-second exposure, because I figured as long as I'm getting a little bit of motion blur in the water itself, I think we're able to mitigate the effect that the marine layer has on the cove itself or this cliffside in terms of its sharpness. And actually, it looks really good. Some really interesting takeaways that honestly I didn't really think about up until this point. So for now, I'm gonna go back to my car because it is absolutely freezing, but I want to actually take you guys behind the computer and see how these photos actually look after some post-processing. All right, so I've had some time to kind of play around with the photos, fully edit them, and there was 2 photos in particular that I thought were really interesting that I really want to take a look at. This first one is about a 20-second exposure. Now, as you can see here, we have this marine layer that came in and honestly took out a lot of the detail from this cliffside. And that was honestly really difficult to deal with, especially because I normally like to shoot really long exposures, like 30 seconds, 20 seconds, especially if I'm far away from my subject matter, in particular water. But what's really interesting is I actually switched over to a 4-second exposure, and as you can see, that marine layer really cleared up, and it's just so much sharper of an image. And if you put these 2 images side by side, and you take a look at this cliffside here, you can just tell a major difference between the level of detail you're able to get with the 4-second exposure versus that 20-second exposure. One thing that's really interesting is that with the 20-second exposure, I think the shoreline looks a whole lot better. You're able to get more of those waves kind of coming in, and it looks a lot more natural versus with this 4-second, really only able to get these waves kind of up on this part here. So there are some major differences between having that 4-second and that 20-second, but in my opinion, I really like the 4-second exposure better, especially if we take a look at this fog that kind of rolled in here. With the 4-second exposure, we get a lot more texture, a lot more shape to that fog itself, and I think it looks really nice and a nice complement to this shoreline here. Whereas with the 20-second exposure, you can see that it's just completely blurred out. And I mean, I think it's more of a stylistic choice more than anything, but I just think that we get so much better shape here and just much more detail with the fog itself. Overall though, I'm actually very happy with these photos, and to me, I'm really a major fan of this 4-second exposure. It just looks better, the colors are better, the exposure overall is a lot more even, and I just think it looks a lot sharper, a lot more detail is able to be shown with this cliffside. But I'm actually very happy with these photos overall, and the Viltrox actually did a really good job when it came to the sharpness, when it came to the vignetting. Actually, one thing about the vignetting though is that I did kind of mention in my previous video about how, you know, we do have a little bit of it, especially when it comes to the color side of it, and definitely you can see that here on this right hand side, but we do go ahead and clean it up. And I was able to find that with my mask here, I'm able to go down and do the kind of point color, select it, and then make a slight hue shift to make it closer to what the blue looks like for the rest of the photo, and it actually cleaned up really well. So overall, even though, you know, we only come out with 1 photo, I think it looks really good. I love this composition. This is one of my favorite photos I've taken recently. So anyways, guys, that is it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about these photos. Which one did you like more, the 20-second exposure or the 4-second exposure? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for experiencing the world with me today. Please feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.